Hi, I'm Dr. George Williams, and welcome to the Emergency Evacuation Drills Training. So to give you some background about this training, it started with a new law that went into effect this year, the Family First Act, which was really refocusing the foster care system around keeping families together, but also providing a higher level of treatment. And one of those higher levels of treatment uh, is something that we are aspiring to as Avery's Village, is a qualified residential treatment program, a QRTP. Currently, we are a YRC2, which is a youth residential center. So in order to become a QRTP, you have to be accredited by a national organization. And so we've selected CARF, which is the Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities. And as part of that accreditation process, it requires us to do some trainings. And one of those trainings is going to benefit us as far as safety and readiness, but also help us with our accreditation by conducting 6 emergency evacuation drills that need to be completed annually on each shift. And here are those drills: fire, bomb threat, tornado, gas and CO2, that's a utility drill, and that's a gas mask, medical, and violence or gun threat. So these are all serious emergencies that could occur or impact the clients at Avery's Village. So about these drills, the managers are going to be the evacuation coordinators. There's going to be 6 drills done on each of the 3 shifts. That means a total of 18 different drills. So these drills, characteristics of these drills is they will be unannounced, they will all result in an evacuation, and they will be evaluated for completeness, and they also need to be documented. So let's start off with the first one, the fire drill. And so some background. A fire drill is a method of practicing how a building would be evacuated in the event of a fire. Our building's existing fire alarm is activated and the building is evacuated by means of the nearest available exit as if an emergency had actually happened. So these are the staff actions. So when a fire is detected by sight, whether you see the fire or see the smoke, smell the burning, or sound, hear the fire alarm, or somebody tells everyone to evacuate by voice, we evacuate the building at the direction of any staff. So staff will evacuate all clients outside to the regroup point and bring the emergency bucket. And the emergency bucket will contain, among other things, client count logs, flashlight, and a first aid kit. So staff will ensure that clients wear shoes and coats. So this means they have to be prepared before the drill, that at this point going forward that all clients should keep their shoes and coat readily available in case of an evacuation, unexpected evacuation. Next, once staff arrive at the regroup point, they'll make a count of all the clients. That's critical. Make sure everyone's accounted for. And then staff will provide first aid to clients if needed. Now we'll take an aerial view of the evacuation route. So this is Avery's Village right here. You can see Leavenworth Road and 63rd Street. All right, in the building we have the Biggs Hall and the Little's Hall, all leading to one of the exits. And you can see the other 3 exits. And the goal of the evacuation, the destination, is the regroup point is between the house and the barn, off of the pavement. And the purpose of that is to make sure that emergency vehicles have access to all the paved parts of the property. So, in the fire drill, the manager's action, which we had said that are the evacuation coordinator, the manager will call 911, and the manager also will determine whether or not the fire extinguisher can be used safely and effectively. The manager will check all rooms, close all doors, The manager will lock case manager's office, make sure that confidential documents are protected. And in the checking of all rooms, they're checking to make sure that no clients are left behind. Once those things are accomplished, the manager will meet at the outside regroup point and then also make their own count. So this will be a second count of the clients and also include the staff. And then the manager will give an all clear for the end of the drill. And all return to the building. And for a third time, the clients will be counted to make sure everyone is accounted for. All right. So as part of the accreditation process, we talk about the review, the fire drill checklist, and do a quick little quiz. The form that is used for the fire drill checklist looks like this. And so there are a number of boxes to be checked. It's 2 pages, and the second part of the form looks like this. And in the fire response and evacuation checklist, I'm going to go ahead and first start off by reading all the items in that checklist. Okay, odor of smoke. And what happens here is they're scored from 0 to 2, and comments can be added. Fire, were the flames observed? Was 911 authorities notified? Was the fire alarm evacuated? Was the fire extinguisher used, and was it used appropriately? Did staff begin evacuation promptly after directed by the evacuation coordinator, the recognized authority? Were all offices checked? Was the emergency kit bag taken by the emergency coordinator? Were all documents secure and all locking cabinets locked? Were all doors closed and if required, locked? And as far as the evacuation route, were they accessible? Were the evacuation routes understandable? Were they obstruction free? Were exterior doors open easily? Was there adequate inside and outside lighting? Were all persons in the identified area evacuated? Did staff gather at the designated location? Was there accounting involved after the evacuation? Was there assistance provided to persons with disabilities? Assistance provided to people with injuries? Was there temporary shelter needed? Was there a continuation of essential services needed? And were persons returned to the affected area only after directed to do so by the proper authority? So once the checklist is completed, and this will be done by the managers or the evacuation coordinators, the second part of the page is after the drill, it's to be reviewed by the vice president. And so they'll sit down with the evacuation coordinators and fill out this form. All right, so the quiz part of this. What are ways fires can be detected? You know about sight, fire, and smoke. Smell is blank, or sound is blank and blank. And then determine whether or not the fire extinguisher can be used blank and blank. Okay, the answers to these 2 quiz questions are: what are the ways fires can be detected? Sight, fire, and smoke. Smell, the burning smell. Sound, either by alarm or by voice commands. Number 3, determine whether or not the fire extinguisher can be used safely and effectively. We don't want the manager to be put in danger to use the fire extinguisher, so that you got to make sure that effectively, if the fire is too big, then you can't use that fire extinguisher effectively, then the manager should simply do the other duties and evacuate. And that concludes our first drill. We're going to continue to talk about the next one, which is the bomb threat. And a little bit of background is a bomb threat drill is a method of practicing how a building would be evacuated in the event of a threat to detonate an explosive or incendiary device to cause property damage, death, and injuries, whether or not such a device actually exists. So all bomb threats need to be taken seriously. So all threats should be carefully evaluated, and to help you evaluate that, you have to consider all the facts and the context. But always we need to err on the side of safety. So in other words, when in doubt, evacuate clients out. A couple other things to note is to make sure you avoid using cell phones or radios to reduce the risk of triggering the device. And then do a quick visual inspection of your area. Do not touch or move suspicious objects. Okay, staff actions. So if a staff receives a bomb threat by phone, they need to remain calm. Write down the caller's exact words and note the time of the call. Check for a caller ID number. Write down all the information you receive. And then next, staff should evacuate all clients outside to the regroup point and bring the emergency bucket with the client count logs, the flashlight, first aid. Make sure staff making sure that clients wear shoes and coats, and then making a count of all clients. Now we'll take a look at the aerial view of the bomb threat evacuation route. And one thing to note about this setup is that the regroup point, so we have all the 5 exits, clients exiting the buildings, going to the regroup point. And in the regroup point, notice it's different than the fire drill. Our regroup point is on the side of the house. And the purpose of that is to protect our clients from any explosions or debris that might be a result of a detonated explosive device. All right, the manager's actions. The managers need to call 911 from a landline. Okay, they can use a cell phone only if the evacuation is complete. Then the manager needs to check all rooms and close all doors. And checking rooms for any clients or staff that might be left behind that may have not heard the alarm or be aware that something emergency is taking place. The manager needs to lock the case manager's office, meet at the outside regroup point where the manager will again make a count of all the clients and staff, and then manager will give the all clear for the end of the drill. All return to the building and again count the clients. Okay, now in the bomb threat review and quiz, the checklist is the same, or similar, I should say. There are a few differences, and so I'll only read the differences, but once again, the evacuation coordinator or managers need to fill out that part and review the second part with the vice president at the end of the drill. But here are some of the items that are scored. Was the bomb threat received by telephone, package, letter, email, computer? Was the bomb threat checklist completed accurately? Were procedures for types of threat followed adequately? Was the evacuation coordinator notified? Were 911 authorities notified? Did staff begin evacuation promptly after directed by the evacuation coordinator? And the rest of the items are similar, are the same items that were for the fire checklist. So as we talk about the bomb threat quiz, when you are in doubt about the bomb threat, you should still blank clients out. Number 3, the manager should call 911 on a blank or on a cell phone after everyone has evacuated. So the answers to the questions are, when you are in doubt about the bomb threat, you should still evacuate clients out. Number 3, the manager should call 911 on a landline or a cell phone after everyone has evacuated, on the landline to reduce the likelihood of triggering the electronic uh, explosive device. All right, that completes our second drill. Our third drill is a tornado drill, and it's listed in our drills as a natural disaster, which is a major adverse event. Examples are floods, hurricanes, thunderstorms, and we're focusing on tornadoes. A natural disaster can cause loss of life or damaged property. And when we talk specifically about tornadoes, they can destroy buildings, flip cars, create deadly flying debris. So tornadoes are violently rotating columns of air that extend from a thunderstorm to the ground, and tornadoes can happen anytime, anywhere, bring intense winds over 200 miles per hour, and look like funnels. So staff actions part 1. And I divided these into 2 parts because there's a part we do inside, and then as a result of the accreditation drill, we would do an evacuation. All right, so the inside part, staff will alert residents to this emergency. Staff will be alerted by the evaluation coordinator, who may hear the sirens or may get a text alert on their cell phone. And so all residents are to do the following. Now, we do have a basement, but we've been instructed not to have the clients go down to the basement. And part of the reason is accessibility, getting to the basement in time. So the clients are to take cover indoors in the hallways. So what they'll do is they'll exit their rooms, and it's important that they close their doors, latch them closed. That'll provide another layer of protection from flying debris. They're going to shield their head and necks with their arms in the hallways. It's kind of like the old bomb threat, the bomb threat, not the bomb threat, but the fallout shelters drills of long ago. But what they'll do to cover themselves is they'll cover their head and their neck with their arms in the hallways, so they can be in a crouch position to do this, possibly facing the inside wall. And then they also can use blankets to provide a layer of protection. So take cover indoors, in the hallways, exit your rooms, close the doors, shield your head and neck, and they can bring blankets as well to provide a layer of protection. Now, the staff actions part 2, once that's been completed, that part of the drill has been completed, which in real life, if there was a tornado and the building was damaged, we'd want to evacuate out the building for the possibilities of structural failure. So staff will evacuate all clients outside, again to the regroup point. Bring the emergency bucket. Staff will ensure clients wear shoes and coats. So see how it'll be critical because there'll be debris outside. And so it'll be important for them to protect themselves from avoidable injuries. Staff will make a count of all clients, and then staff will provide first aid to clients if they need it. And the evacuation route is the same for a number of others, which will be between the house and the barn. So exiting the building, whichever is the quickest route to this point, making sure that the staff is leading the clients. And then the manager coming behind everyone, checking all rooms for any clients or staff, closing all doors, locking offices, going to the regroup point, recounting the clients, and counting the staff, calling 911 if emergency services are needed, and then giving the all clear at the end of the drill and returning to the building, and again counting all clients. Okay, the review of the checklist for a tornado drill looks like this, and the differences are that I'll share from the checklist are vertical or horizontal evacuation use, procedure, and so that's meaning if they're on the same floor or if we're going to the basement. Procedure for disaster types followed adequately. Evacuation coordinator notified, 911 authorities notified, and all the rest remain the same. This is filled out by the evacuation coordinator, the managers, and then the whole drill then is reviewed with a vice president, and he fills out this information. The next drill is gas or CO2, which is really a utility failure, and these are the ones that we're going to focus on. It's a method of practicing how a building would be evacuated in the event of a utility failure that could result in property damage, death, or injury. And so there's two of these that we're looking at. The first two, items 1 and 2, when gas is smelled or suspected a gas leak, which natural gas is odorless, so the utility companies add a smell agent to it, which smells like sulfur or rotten eggs. But what that gas leak can result in is a fire or explosion. So this is very, very dangerous. So when you notice there's, if you're in the kitchen, if you notice there's abnormally high or low flame or no gas in your gas appliances, this should trigger a staff person alerting everyone to leave the building, evacuate the building. The second thing that should trigger a evacuation is carbon monoxide. Now, once again, odorless gas, and so that's why it's important for us to have these carbon monoxide alarms, and I purchased 2 of them and put one in the hallway, the big side and the little side. It's important that our clients do not mess with those. They could save lives. They signal dangerous levels of carbon monoxide and they go off. Besides that, though, there are symptoms that can result that can clue us that we need to have an evacuation. If multiple clients have headaches, muscle weakness, feeling nausea, confusion, dizziness, and unconsciousness. So these symptoms, headaches, muscle weakness, nausea, confusion, dizziness, and unconsciousness are symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. And it's important to know that carbon monoxide can kill. So, and this is another reason why it's important for our room checks that we're going in at night when our clients are asleep to make sure that there's some kind of movement with a number of the clients to know that, because carbon monoxide could kill a person very easily in their sleep. So staff will evacuate all clients outside to the regroup point and bring the emergency bucket. Staff will ensure clients wear shoes and coats. Staff will make a count on all clients, and staff will provide first aid to clients if needed. And so our evacuation point, the main thing in case of carbon monoxide would be getting fresh air, so coming out to this point. And then as far as gas and electric, what we've done is we moved it over here because the gas could cause an explosion. And so we're going back to the side of the building, the house, for an extra layer of protection from an explosion. All right, for 4, managers will call 911. The manager is going to check all rooms to make sure everyone's been evacuated, close all doors, lock the case manager office, meet at the outside regroup point, make a count of all clients, another count, and staff. And then managers give the all clear at the end of the drill, all return to the building, and again, the third count of clients is made at that point. Which brings us to our review and quiz. The review is the utility failure response and evacuation checklist. The description is if a gas leak, electrical and matches, if gas leak, electrical devices and matches are not used. Procedures for utility type are followed adequately. So I just want to re-emphasize that it's important. There's a gas leak and that there are no electrical devices or matches that are used, because that can set off a spark, which when there's a 5% fill of gas in a room, it could cause an explosion. The procedures for utility type are followed adequately, and the evacuation coordinator is notified. So once again, the checklist, the review with the vice president, which brings us to the medical drill evacuation. So there are many potential medical emergencies that could arise to become a threat to the safety and well-being of clients. And so one example is a building structural failure that results in physical injury. So this evacuation is usually would be associated with other evacuations like a tornado, somebody got injured in that process, or a fire, so medical emergency, or it can happen on its own. All right, so staff actions. Staff will be evacuated all clients outside the regroup point and bring the emergency bucket. Ensure clients wear their shoes and coats. Staff will make a count on all clients, and staff will provide first aid to clients if needed before an ambulance would arrive. The evacuation point, which is accessible for emergency vehicles, would be this regroup point here between the two buildings. So exiting out the buildings, going to the regroup point, and the manager would call 911, would check all rooms are evacuated, close all doors, lock the case manager's office, meet at the outside regroup point, make a count of all clients and staff, give all clear for this end of the drill, and then all return to the building and again count clients for the third time. So reviewing the medical emergency checklist, that's what this looks like. Here's a few more that are added on as the description: CPR or first aid used or used appropriately and used appropriately, procedures followed adequately, and the rest of these checklists match the other checklists. All right, let's do a quick quiz. What should the emergency bucket contain? A flashlight, count logs, and a blank. Number 3, while you're waiting for the ambulance, you should provide blank if you're able, and I'd also add if it's needed. And so for the answer to number 2, what should the emergency bucket contain? A flashlight, count log, and a first aid kit. Number 3, while we are waiting for the ambulance, you should provide first aid if you are able and if the client needs it. All right, that brings us to our last drill, which is a threat drill. And so a little background about that. A threat drill is a method of practicing how a building would be evacuated in the event of a physical violence or gun or shooter threat, which could result in property damage, death, or injuries. So it's important to note if there is a physical violence situation, we can attempt to de-escalate the situation. But in the case of a gun or shooter threat, we should immediately evacuate the building. So in other words, run. So carefully evacuate the building. But actually, because it's an emergency, urgently evacuate the building. These other two options, fight or hide, would be are in some of the common safety videos for active shooter threat, but our focus is on the evacuation part, so this one right here. Especially in the context of what we're doing, a threat drill for this accreditation process. But these are other two options, fighting and hiding, in the case of an active shooter threat. Okay, what the staff does, the same thing, evacuate all clients. The only difference is quickly. And so in some cases, in these cases, getting shoes on or coats are secondary. The priority is to get out the building. Staff will make a count of all clients, and staff will provide first aid to clients if needed. And the evacuation spot changes now for this drill. I put the evacuation spot in front of the house, and the purpose of that is in the event of a active shooter trying to pursue outside, there needs to be a clear path for us to move our regroup point further down the road. And so these other areas are blocked by fencing. And so the regroup point for this threat is located in front of the house. Manager calls 911. And some of these steps the manager may also be immediately going out after checking all the rooms and making sure that everyone's evacuated. Calling 911, checking rooms, closing all doors, locking the case manager, meeting at the outside regroup point. The manager will make a count of all clients and staff. And then the manager gives all clear for the end of the drill, all return to the building, and again count clients. And the review checklist for violent or other threatening situations, response and evacuation checklist, were de-escalation techniques used appropriately for violent situations, were procedures followed adequately, evacuation coordinator notified, 911 or law enforcement notified, and then all the rest are similar. And then there's a review with the vice president. And then finally, the review questions. What should you do at least 3 times with the clients for their safety? Number 3, if there is gun violence threat, you should not attempt to de-escalate, but... All right, number 2, what should you do at least 3 times when with the clients for their safety? Do a count. Make sure you do a count once the first staff person takes everyone outside, when the manager comes back outside, and then when everyone returns. 3 counts. And if there is gun violence threat, you should not attempt to de-escalate, but rather evacuate. All right, so that concludes the emergency evacuation drills, the 6 of them. And these will be occurring unannounced drills that will be happening from this day forward. So everyone who's watched this video now has been informed on what to do. Thank you.